So now we're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. So let's just dive in and look at a nice 1/3 and 2/5. Okay, so one way to do this is I'm going to draw two sort of bar diagram models. Cut one into thirds and the other one into fifths. Try that one again. It's pretty important to get these. Like that. Okay. Look at that. So now it's really not clear, right, how to add these two. Because again, the size of these things aren't the same, so I can't just say it's a total of 3, because in many ways it's the units are not the same. Remember, one way to think about this is 1/3 and plus 2/5. I don't know why I put right, and I can't say, you know, if I'm adding gallons and cups, I can't just say 1 cup plus 2 gallons equals 3 somethings, because those units aren't the same. So how do we do this? Okay, so we basically have to remember that what we can do is I can actually further subdivide these bar diagrams. And what I want to do is on the thirds, I'm going to cut into fifths, right? And so that's the same. The shaded area is the same. I just drew some extra lines on there. This one I'm going to further subdivide as into thirds. So I'm going to take the thirds and cut by fifths. I'm going to take this guy and cut into thirds. Okay. Now, instead of thinking about this as 1/3, this is 5/15. Right? So 1/3 was the same as 5/15. This also shows 2/5 is the same as 6/15. And now I just count, right? So the answer is 11/15. All right. Now, the other way to do this is actually, and I think maybe sometimes a little bit easier to see, and what we're going to do is cut this into, again, I'm going to start in thirds, so I've got a bigger box. And this is the sort of subdivided area model, right? So there's a third. And then what I want to do is cut this guy into fifths. This way. All right. So these are sort of equivalent ways of doing the same thing, right? The shaded area is still a third. It's whether I've cut the other one either in the same direction, everything's vertical here, or I get that. And then if I'm doing the other one, okay, this is very important. So I want to make the box look exactly the same. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this guy, first of all, into fifths. Okay. And I'm doing 2/5, so maybe I'll do the bottom 2/5. Doesn't really matter. So I've got that. And then I'm going to subdivide this way. Okay. Now that's really important because the size of these boxes have to look the same. So if I would have cut fifths and then thirds that way, it doesn't look right. The sizing just is wrong. It just doesn't look like they're this. They are the same area, but it doesn't look right. And now we just count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right? So this is a total of 11/15. Okay, good. So basically what this shows is, again, how do we do the area model? Or sorry, how do I do the algebraic form, excuse me. Algebraic form. So I'm going to do A over B plus C over D. Okay, so one thing we can do with this is look at this and go, all right. So what did I do here is I took and I made this an equivalent fraction by cutting, right, the other fraction number of times. So what that means is again, this is how I get an equivalent fraction, is I just multiply top and bottom by some other factor. And what I'm going to do is I want to cover it so that these all end up the same. I'm going to multiply the other one. I'm going to multiply this by b. So in my other case, I had thirds. So I took my thirds and multiplied by 5 to get 15ths. In this case, I've got fifths, and I'm going to multiply by thirds to get 15ths. Like that. Okay? Now, these are all the same denominators, so we just use the same denominator rule to get that. Okay, so we've got that. All right. Now, there's a couple of other things with this. So let's just do one. So if I have, let's say 3/5 plus 4/7, right? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 times 7, 5 times 7. And multiply this by 5, right? So that's equivalent to 3/5. This one's equivalent to 4/7. And then I get 21 plus 20 over 35 to give me 41 over 35. All right. Again, this is improper, and you can turn it to a mixed number. That doesn't really matter so much. It's the important thing is how is it that I add the fractions. Like that. Okay. All right. So I think that's enough for adding subtraction with unlike denominators.